Tonight I come to you with a heavy heart to talk about how worldly sorrow can lead to suicide. Being in the field for 30 years, I've seen a handful of people take their life. And it's just sad. It's beyond sad. There are no words. There are no words. If you're watching, if you've had a family member or someone close to you suicide, it's the greatest tragedy ever, because there's a way. There's a way other than suicide. Maybe you've contemplated it yourself. But worldly sorrow sees the hopelessness through human limits. And there are no human solutions for the impossible situations that we face. There's not. The only way out is to suicide, to end the misery from a human perspective. But we have godly sorrow, and godly sorrow offers hope in the middle of a hopeless situation. The situation's impossible for us, but it's not impossible for God. But we've got to lean into His love and reach out to His people. And we've got to take all the guilt and where our heart's rooted in hurt and hopelessness, and we've got to open it up and let people who love us and God's grace, the power, the transforming power of God's grace, the grace that raised Jesus from the dead, we've got to let that in our heart. And we've got to trade out. We've got to purge it of our ways and our beliefs and our solutions, and take in God's truth and the love from His people, and just cling tight to them and humbly lay down our ways and submit to God. His ways work. His ways work. We can't figure out His ways with our human finite mind, and that's what people do. They mull that over and they mull that over, and then they revert to their point of reference, which is their personal truth and what they believe about the situation, and that's a hopeless end. It's hopeless. It is hopeless in our strength. But when we lean into godly sorrow makes a way for us. And it's rooted in love. And we lean into the love, the transforming love that will catapult us and gird up underneath us and carry us through an otherwise impossible situation. So, I had something else prepared for today. And at the last minute, I felt like I was just supposed to go with this. So if you've considered suicide, if you've contemplated it, I pray that you're going to reach out to let someone know and turn to God's ways, godly sorrow, which will promise you the door of hope. You can't see it in your human mind. You can't figure it out. If you could figure it out in your human mind, you wouldn't need a Savior. We need a Savior, though, because we can't do this. Maybe you've lost someone to suicide, and my heart goes out to you. It really does. It really, really does. But again, God's love will get you through this so that you can rise up and live the life you're supposed to live despite the misery of losing someone you've loved. Because at the end of the day, we've got to answer to God. At the end of our life, we're going to answer to God. Did we do what we were supposed to do? Did we do? Because His love empowers us to do what we're supposed to do. Judas and Peter, I said if we were voting on who did the worst, I would vote that Peter did, because Peter was in the inner circle. Peter was close to Jesus' heart. And Peter stood earlier and said, I will never deny you. I will always love you. I will stand with you to the end. And Jesus told him he wouldn't. Judas, on the other hand, he sold Jesus out. And he turned to worldly sorrow. He couldn't handle the horrific thing he did. So he took matters into his own hands and took his life. Peter was just heaped in his sorrow and hopelessness. And when Jesus called for the disciples, he says, tell Peter to come too. Because Jesus wanted him to know, my love's bigger than what you've done. But Peter had to humble himself before the Lord and turn to Him and accept that grace so that he could move past what he did to Jesus. I mean, can you imagine when Jesus was going to the cross and to look to the person that he loved, that had been doing life with, and they started to curse him and say, I don't know you? But Peter was able to get past that, not because of anything he did, but because he received what Jesus did for him. That, my friend, is godly sorrow. And godly sorrow will catapult us forward in an otherwise impossible, humanly impossible situation. So my prayer for y'all who are watching tonight is that you know the difference and that you cling to godly sorrow, because it's our hope. Let me hear what you have to say. Comments? Let's talk about it. Talk to you later.